Hey, so I'm starting this new series on YouTube all about how to beat patriarchy. Um, there are so many facets to this, and I wanted to do this because there's a lot in the ether, there's a lot on social media about what we can do about it. We see everything playing out on the world stage in terms of everything in the US with Trump and the rise of misogyny, but also we're being hit hard on our own financial situation when economics are not looking good. It's women that are the first to bear the brunt of the pain. Um, so globally, we have got real life concerns about our rights being stripped away. We have real life concerns about our financial situations. Um, it's also about our health. That's a huge one because we know that our health doesn't receive the same levels of attention in terms of research, in terms of investment, in terms of even identifying the needs of women through healthcare systems. Globally, we know that. We also have a lot of fears around our safety, our security, and that's most often the risks come from our own relationships and the people who are closest to us. So there are a number of sort of spheres in our lives that are impacted by the influence of patriarchy. And there's so much to go into. I mean, that's just kind of scratching the surface. Um, in you know, in order for us to do anything meaningful in the face of that, it starts with ourselves, and that's the point that I want to make first and foremost with this series is that there's a lot around how do we dismantle patriarchy. That's looking at things in terms of a movement, that's looking at activism, that's looking at some kind of shared endeavor, which is important. That comes into this. But if we're to do that, everything starts with ourselves. And one of the fundamental principles of activism is self-care, because you can't show up and change the world if you're not taking care of yourself. So if you are you're at a point where you feel like you are investing a lot of time and effort into trying to make progress for yourself, but you find that you keep hitting walls and it's difficult to understand how to overcome them, it's difficult to make sense of them, it feels disempowering, you feel isolated. Those walls are part of the system. I've had clients say to me before, why is it that there's something that feels like I'm being shut out because I'm a mum, or because I'm black, and or because I've been out of work, and or all of these things that come together. And it's the effect is that you're made to feel like it's not true, that it's your own shortcoming, that it's your own failure. And that's why women get stuck in this loop of perfectionism, because we're conditioned to believe that we're not succeeding because there's some sort of deficit within us. There's something that's not quite right about us and how we're showing up. So that helps to contain us. There's a concept that I'm writing about at the moment, which I call the control delusion, which is this idea that if we are perfect, if we do our best, if we work hard, if we play by the rules, that eventually there will be some form of payoff to that. And the reality is that that is a delusion. That is a delusion which is presented to us through patriarchy. And I sort of hesitate to use the word patriarchy because I'm kind of old school in terms of I'm from a background where I mean, I've been talking about this for so long. It was difficult. It's been difficult for me to even use the word patriarchy or feminist without it igniting some sort of response. I'm clear on what it means, and I'm clear that I'm a feminist and I'm proud to be a feminist. But I also am aware that those words are triggering to certain groups of people. But what I've learned through this work and through this experience is that I'm not talking to those people. Okay, I'm not talking to people who are going to say that everything is fair in life and you just have to work hard. I'm not talking to the people who think that systemic racism and discrimination doesn't exist. I'm not talking to those people. I'm talking to people who are actually aware of what's going on. I'm talking to people who take their news from more than one source. I'm talking to people who want to improve themselves, improve their lives, who want to show up for their community and take care of one another. Those are the people I'm talking to. I'm not talking to people who think that that the world is a fair place. So we're working from a premise of patriarchy is real, it impacts us, we need to do something about it. But even if we can see that it's real, it doesn't mean that we accept the impact that it has on us. And that's what I'm trying to do with this work. So it's providing clarity. It's laying it all out and saying you're not imagining these things, and these barriers that you're facing are not to do with a personal deficit of something that you are missing or you're not good at. You are whole, you're complete, you have so much experience, knowledge, awareness already. What I'm saying is that in order for you to meet these challenges fully, you need to understand the context, what's going on behind it. You need to understand that you're not alone. You need to understand that this is a real life challenge for not just you, but for women globally, because systems are built to keep people in their positions. Systems are built so that we can't be socially mobile. They're built so that people who are wealthy stay in those positions and that people who are disenfranchised do not. It serves the status quo, it serves systems, it serves economic structures to stay the way they are, because then it means that the elites who are the white male coming from money backgrounds will stay in those roles. And this is a big thing in the UK. There's a big thing around, we have monarchy. Monarchy is part of the system. Monarchy is a kind of structure, an example that tells people, fundamentally it tells people that you have to be born into the right family. You have to be born into the right circumstances to expect that you will have access. And those people are going to be more intelligent, they're more deserving, they are more worthy than everybody else. This is something that's baked into British culture. And nobody really stops and goes, hang on a minute, why is it that this family who don't have any particular skill set or anything useful to contribute, have lots of money and own all this land, and they seem to get a lot from taxpayers, but why do they deserve that when they're just born into this family? Like, no one really questions it that much. I mean, every now and then it comes up. I mean, we got rid of them a couple of times, but we couldn't come up with a better way of being, so we just brought them back. I mean, it's only the UK that would do that, let's be honest. They just couldn't come up with another plan, so they brought the monarchy back. The French had the right idea, that's all I can say. But anyway, in terms of patriarchy, what we're talking about is our buy-in to the idea that these systems will inevitably eventually pay off for us. And if we wake up to the fact that they don't, then we can regain control. And that has to be led by our own our own values and our own ability to show up for ourselves. We've got to be guided by what our values are, but we've got to be our most authentic selves, and we've got to find a way to aim for that, because we've got to own our successes in terms of how we already got here. If we can't do that, then we are starting from behind. We've got to start with a foundation. And that foundation isn't automatic. It's not like we've been raised with that foundation of being raised to believe that we are good enough, that we are enough, that we have enough, that we've achieved enough. We are not raised to believe that. We're raised to believe that we need to stay inside the lines to stay safe. And that's a really powerful tool. That's a really powerful way of stopping people from doing the things that they want. It contains free will, and it's the most effective with women because it really works in terms of real life fears. We are afraid that if we don't sort of keep inside the lines, then we will be harmed. It's something that's kind of fundamental to us. And while I can say, for me, I'm not conforming to that, I'm taking a different path, I recognize that that's still part of my DNA. I can't just shake that off. I have to recognize that that is a part of who I am. But what I can do is notice it and challenge it and look at it for what it is. I can examine it. I can decide, okay, based on everything I know, is this self-doubt or is this real? Is this something that I can deal with? Is this something that is true? I can have a look at all of these kind of ingrained beliefs that I have and see how they're affecting my thoughts and just be aware of them. That's the first step to all of this. I can be kind of bold about it and say, you need to stop being focused on or stop worrying about what expectations are placed on you and focus on your own needs. But that's easy to say. What I want to do with this work is really deep dive into it and unpack that more, because it's not easy. It's not easy. It's easy for me to say, follow your dreams, do what matters to you, align with your values. But what does that look like? What does that mean for you day to day? How does that show up in terms of the decisions that you make? You could be on a certain path and thinking, I'm doing everything right here, but you're actually not focused on the area of your life that you want to change. You could be really kind of caught up in toxic wellness culture and think, if I'm really super healthy and I do all these things, but you're completely overlooking the fact that your career has stalled, or that you're covering up a deeper truth around how you're not happy in your relationship, for example. So that's the deeper layer to it. The starting point is to recognize what's going on. So we can recognize the systems that are at play. We can say, okay, I see what's going on. I'm going to check in with what I want. But I also need to understand more deeply what is going on in terms of power structures, inequality. I need to understand what this means in terms of economics and what that means for my own personal wealth and my financial independence. I need to understand what this means for me in terms of my relationships and how I can manage those. But I also need to think about my health. How do I protect my health in a world where the message is that it's not worth investing in, that it's not important enough to research, and that a lot of what I am describing in terms of my own experience of my health is dismissed or minimized? Those are the facts. That is real. That is what is happening. So what are you going to do about it? How are you going to show up? You need to understand at a deeper level what is happening. You also need to understand in the context of that, what does that mean for how I've been raised, what my belief systems are, how I challenge that within myself, because my default will be that I need to follow the rules and conform in order to be safe. How do I gently challenge that with myself without punishing myself, without judging myself? How can I approach that with self-compassion, supporting that authenticity, working towards my purpose with a sense of self-compassion? And that's where you want to start. So I'm really excited to get into this a bit more. If you are interested, hit subscribe, like, share, and follow for more content.